Thank you for joining us at Toy Fair University. Up next, we have From Discovery to Devotion, How Fandoms Develop and Stick with Gen Alpha. Your moderator today is Nick Walters from SuperAwesome.
All right. Thank you, Katherine. Cool. Well, today I'm excited that we have kind of a double header. So I'm going to start out with a few words. 1, 2. 1, 2. Close to the mic. Okay. I'm going to take this off. I'm kind of tall, so I'm going to take this off the stand. So I'm going to start out with a few words about some work that we at SuperAwesome have been doing about the fandom space, which I think is possibly the single most important thing to understand if you're trying to scale a toy brand in 2026. And then what's really important, I'm going to get out of the way, and we're going to go and hear from some real experts and hands-on practitioners in the art of building brands in this space to talk about how we make this real. Okay, so first of all, very quickly, my name is Nick Walters. I am Chief Strategy Officer at SuperAwesome. We are the only platform that is really, really focused on helping brands and helping toy companies connect with under 18s. So engagement with Gen Alpha and Gen Z is all we do. And how do we do it? We want to be an end-to-end partner to help everyone connect with that audience, whether it's ads, whether it's the creator economy, and whether it's gaming, and newly arrived in our product lineup, audio and podcasting. We do all of it. Most importantly for this presentation, though, we also really try and lean into the intelligence and research side. And so that's really what I'm going to draw on today for this presentation. I'm going to talk about some new insights that we have around this idea of building fandom for the next generation. First of all, what is fandom? You have heard this word kind of blow up across the ecosystem and the industry over the last few years. If you go do a Google Trend search, fandom goes through the roof. Fandom is very simple. It is simply a shared community of interest in an IP, whether that IP is a sports team, a toy brand, a movie, really any kind of type of IP with a community around it is a fandom, but it has to be a community. It has to be social. It has to be something you talk about. It's not just a product. It's not just what you watched last night on Netflix. It is a social community that you would talk to your friends about. And now, of course, fandoms are not new. We have had fandoms for at least as long as we have had media. This is everyone going crazy for the Beatles on their first US tour back in 1960s. Definitely a fandom. But fandoms have got way more important. As we've moved into a world where the media ecosystem is much more fragmented, where it's much more two-way, where there's much more interaction, fandoms have become the vital glue that help us hold products together. Great example of that, first Comic-Con in 1970, 300 people came along to it. Most recent Comic-Con, which is kind of the ground zero for fandom, more people there than the Super Bowl. And I think the critical thing for us all here at Toy Fair is fandoms are what make for forever sales. If you want to be selling product this year at Christmas, you need marketing and you need customers. If you want to be selling the same product in 5 years' time, you need to think about how you build a fandom. You need to think about how you build a group of passionate and engaged fans. And so one of the key things that we really think about at SuperAwesome is that fandoms are not static. Fandoms have cycles. You just hear about something for the first time, you discover it, you fall in love with it, you get super engaged. It becomes one of the things that really consumes you and your spare time and your disposable income. And then sometimes you age out of it, you get too old for it, it stops being cool, and you leave it. And then sometimes, and we see this more and more, you come back because actually something else sparks you back into that fandom. So fandoms are not cycle, are not static. They're dynamic, living, breathing things. And so what we're going to draw on today is some work that helps us kind of map those cycles, helps understand what's going on at each of those time periods. And this is drawing on new research from SuperAwesome. It's drawing on interviews that we've done with both kids and creators, because we think creators are incredibly important in understanding this space. And it also draws on data from our own intelligence platform, Awesome Intelligence, which we really use at scale to help kind of map and plan and deliver across this ecosystem. So that's a huge piece of work that manifested itself in a big research report we put out last month. I'm not going to go through all of that report there. Please, you can go grab it from our website. You also have flyers in front of you. You can go grab the QR code for. But I am going to pull some quick highlights for this. So 5 quick highlights. First of all, it bears saying again, fandoms are social. And I think one of the things that it's easy to forget where in this world where we're so focused on YouTube and the social media ecosystem and online communities and digital fragmentation is that in many ways, the number one job that we all have to do as marketers and brands has not changed. You have to have kids and young people talking to each other about the product. That's what builds a fandom. It's a social affair. Even something like Stranger Things, for example, a small group of initial seed fans discovered that on Netflix, but for most people, they're finding about it from their friends at school, they're in some kind of social setting. And so the number one job that we all have to do as brand builders and marketers in this space is think about how we spark that talkability. And some people will tell you that you kind of need to measure everything, that everything's important in this world. That's not the case. The number one job thing you must measure and understand if you're trying to drive fandom is that talkability. So where does talkability come from? Well, one of the other key insights we have is that talkability comes from trusted creators. This is a world of quite low trust, like conventional media, mass institutions, they're all losing trust. So if you want to know the institutions which are most important for a new generation to find out what's cool and what they can trust to be cool and relevant, it's creators. And what's the number one thing that people do after they watch content from a creator about a new product? Well, the number one thing is watch more content. But the second thing they do is they talk about it with their friends or family. Creators spark that talkability. So if talkability is the most important thing, then creators are an incredibly powerful way of driving it. Third fast fact, multi-platform is key, but most engagement starts on YouTube. So we think about our journey. We've sparked talkability. We've discovered that something might be cool. Where do you go to find out more? Invariably, the answer is YouTube. For all ages, for all IPs, YouTube is typically the place to start, and you have to master YouTube. It's an incredibly important place to go find a way to engage your fans, whether it's through media, whether it's through creators, whether it's through owned content. But YouTube is not the only platform. There's a big creator ecosystem out there, things like TikTok, Roblox, Fortnite, the live streaming ecosystem around Twitch, and all of those platforms can play a role for different fandoms. And so the second thing that's really important to think about is, okay, is YouTube plus what? Where do I find my audience? What's the right platform for them? And what's the right way for me to show up on that platform? And that's the thing that we can really help with a tool like Awesome Intelligence. So multi-platform is key. YouTube is the place to start. What else do we need to add? Fourth thing to think about. Fandoms are social. They're about community. They're about conversation. A lot of that conversation still happens in real life. But a really significant part of it happens digitally, happens on community platforms like Discord and Reddit. And what those online platforms do is they enable people to be in much, much more niche fandoms. 20, 30 years ago, if there wasn't a group of people at your school who was into the thing you were into, you couldn't be social. You didn't have anyone to talk to about the niche anime that you were into or the obscure Japanese movie that you might like. Now you do. You can go find an online community of like-minded individuals that will give you that sense of belonging and that fulfillment. Most people don't do that. It's important to remember. The majority of people who are into a fandom do not join an online community. But the people who do, they're the super fans. Almost every desirable behavior that we as marketeers or product owners might want from a group of users, whether it's going to a live event, whether it's creating their own content, whether it's posting about it, people who are in online communities like Reddit or Discord are nearly twice as likely to do those behaviors as regular fans. So that's where you go find your super fans. Thinking about how you use these platforms to go engage super fans, super important. And then finally, the bad moment. Aging out is always a risk in this space. There is always a risk that after all this work, we can lose our fans. Things can stop getting cool and people can roll off. And so, you see some of those typical drivers of leaving a fandom. I grew out of it. I lost interest. I got bored. But I'd encourage everyone to focus on two in the middle, which are really controllable. My friends moved on, or there wasn't new content anymore. Again, fandoms are social. If you can keep people's friends engaged and you keep social groups engaged, you can sustain the longevity of a fandom. And how do you do that? Well, one great way is to keep that talkability going. Continue to feed the content machine, continue to feed the creator ecosystem, tell the stories and the background and the lore behind your product and your characters and your IP, and you can sustain the conversation. So we move from a place of kind of key beats of marketing, orientated around particular retail windows, to needing to keep that sustained conversation going. And in the 5 minutes we have left, we'll talk about some quick examples of people doing that. All right, so I just want to give some case studies here for the last couple of minutes of things that we think are really interesting in this space going on. These are not necessarily the biggest things, but I think they are some of the most interesting. So, one is talkability is key. What does talkability look like in the digital space? How do you create talkability? Well, memes have become the vital viral transmission mechanism for digital talkability. And you see this in something like Dexter. Dexter is an old TV show. It's been around, I think, 20, 25 years. It has surged back in popularity over the last 20 years, over the last couple of years. And the reason it's surged back is because it's highly, highly mimetic. Dexter is perfect, as the example shows on the left-hand side, for creating memes that you want to share with your friends that are kind of funny and viral and true to the character and true to the story. If you can get the meme ecosystem going around your IP, you can give it new life. Super interesting thing for us to think about. And I think the power of this is most closely shown by Italian brain rot. If you don't know Italian brain rot, I can't fully explain it to you. There is a lot there. Essentially, this is a series of community-owned memes that sprang up on TikTok last year. No single creator behind this. This is a community picking up new memes and kind of making them their own. They went viral. Then UGC creators started making their own games, their own products around them. Those Italian brain rot-inspired characters became the biggest grossing games on both Fortnite and Roblox. And to give you a sense of scale, that's millions of dollars a week in revenue from these characters. And I'm now looking at fast turnaround product coming out of China using brick toys and things like that, created around this IP. So this is a great example of the power of memes. This started as community memes. This has now become one of the dominant IPs of 2025. Similarly, power of memes. You see Dr. Pepper hopping on the back of this TikTok creator who created her own jingle for the Dr. Pepper ads. Went massively viral. You saw Dr. Pepper kind of lean into it, and you see that headline. Social media users are celebrating. This is driving talkability. This is creating that moment where people want to talk about your IP, and it's that talkability that builds and sustains fandom. And lastly, I just wanted to touch on that point around lore as well. Again, we think about if we think the creator ecosystem is important, if we think talkability is important, the job of a creator is a tough one. Every day, at least every week, you have to get in front of the camera and find something to say that's relevant and engaging and interesting, and it's going to drive numbers. And that works for you if you've got things to talk about. And so you think about some of the biggest IPs out there, the multi-billion-dollar juggernauts in this new world, whether it's K-pop Demon Hunters, whether it's Harry Potter, there's really deep lore behind those brands. There's always something new to say. There's always some new angle to the way in which K-pop Demon Hunters has celebrated K-pop with some kind of if you know reference that gives you something in the creator ecosystem to be talking about. And so really finding ways to extract that lore, to celebrate it, to tell the stories behind characters, this is one of the key tools we think in driving deep engagement and sustaining that deep engagement. All right, so that's some of our research. That's some of what we think about the space, but that is only the start of the conversation. The most important thing then is to think about how we translate these insights, how we translate this into the actual experience of trying to build a brand, trying to engage an audience, try to run a toy company in 2026. And so I'm delighted to have a panel of true experts to join us in this. So we have Jess Rafalski, SVP at Starcom, who works with a number of clients in kid-related industries, Katherine Resto from Moose Toys, and Rachael Reid from Spin Master. Please give them a very big welcome. Hello? 1, 2? Oh, great. Okay, cool. So hopefully that was not a million miles off base, I don't think, but I thought maybe Katherine, I'd start with you at the end. Like, how does Moose think about fandom? What does that mean? What does fandom mean for you?
Absolutely. It starts really with the first point of emotional connection, emotional relevancy, right? Because it's the only way to then build from that. Once you build that connection, you're able to then have the audiences and who you're trying to attract really interact with your product, interact with your storytelling content, and of course then purchase product.
Okay. Yeah. Rachel, emotional connection, does that sound right for?
Yeah, we would say that's very spot on for us at Spin Master as well. I think when we talk about fandoms and engaging with fans, it's all about showing up authentically. And as authentic is a word that we use all the time at Spin Master because we want to help fuel the conversation, be part of the conversation, and really help fuel that community aspect of it. And we're very lucky to have a number of IPs that allow us to do that. So, for example, you mentioned Italian Brain Rot. We also have our Paw Patrol. Hopefully everyone's familiar with Paw. And that's where we're producing content to further fuel that creativity and that creative connection.
I think that's so interesting because you hear that word authentic a lot. Everyone wants to be authentic. Everyone wants to be authentic. What could you talk about? What does that look like in practice? Like, how does that show up for you day to day in a decision you make? What's not authentic? Maybe might be a way of asking the question.
I think when it comes to authenticity, it's working with creators. Creators are a huge part of it. We want them to be the ambassadors for our brand. Going out there and pushing an ad in front of someone's face is not helping fuel that conversation. So we really want to use influencers who can be as passionate about our brands as us and push that message across in an authentic way that really resonates with those that are also in that fandom.
So you're kind of using creators as the sort of connective tissue out to
100% we are, yeah.
Got it. Jess, you have the luxury of working across a range of brands. How does this scan? And what's changing? Does this feel like it's changing over time? Or is this the eternal disciplines of building a community?
I would say there's a massive change on how we're advising our brands on how to build fandom. Even just 5 years ago, we would say it's about reach and repetition, using a few big distribution partners and trying to make a splash. But now that has majorly changed. You both hit on the importance of emotional relevance. It's no longer about building a fandom at kids, but building with kids so that way they actually feel like they're participating with the brand. And we're seeing two big shifts from the agency side. One, what we're advising a lot of our clients on is this recognition of what I like to call the plural kid or the multi-hyphenate identity. So if you have your own kid or if you have a kid in your life, you recognize they don't fit into these neat little boxes that we as marketers like them to fit into. They're no longer just the gaming enthusiast or the sports fan or the sci-fi lover. They occupy all of those spaces at any given time. And that means we have to change how we think about segmentation, about comms, and how we're reaching them because they can cycle through these moments. And we're trying to really build a spot in their rotation, which is a rotation of many. And then that second thing, it's going back to what I said at the upfront. It's no longer about building a brand at a kid, but building with them. And I think this shifts the question that a media agency has to build. It's no longer how do I show up as a brand, but how can I build a participation engine that both of my friends here hit on that allows kids to feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves.
That sounds hard.
It's really hard.
Like, you sort of we move from this world of, okay, I'm going to market to kids to I'm going to create with kids. Well, that sounds like that might have some complexity to it. And then they're plural kids. They're doing different things. They're not just into my thing, they're into... Is it as hard as it sounds?
It's...
Yeah, yes. But there is ways around it. I think it's all about being where the kids are, so showing up in their space. So it's not just TV anymore. It's TV, gaming, social media, and showing up there with a consistent message is really important. And also using those environments to really listen to the kids. Lean into them. What are they telling us about the brand? What do they like about the product? And almost use them as our little mini creators or inventors. Mm-hmm. They are the ones we need to be listening to, not necessarily ourselves.
And where does that listening happening? Is that reading the YouTube comments? Is that research? What does that look like?
Well, with our amazing partner, SuperAwesome. Great segue. So we've done some really great campaigns with SuperAwesome for brands such as Rubik's Cube, where we're connecting with creators, running case studies. So we've done a few case studies where we can reach out to a select panel of children and really hear what they have to say about the product and what they like about it. So that's just one way that we've done it.
Awesome answer, although I promise you we did not prep that.
It wasn't planned.
That was not planned, I promise you. Just saying. Katherine, what is this? Is it hard? How are you guys thinking about this?
It is difficult, and I think part of it, we've touched upon it here, it's about connecting with the creators, right, bringing that in. I feel like at Moose Toys, right, we're building some of these franchises with the creator. So Mr. Beast Labs is one of our brands, our beloved brands, and it's about kids and the audience is engaging with that content and feeling a part of it, wanting to be in the action of it. Same thing when we think about as we're bringing in more creators. You guys have heard of Crunch Labs is coming out with Mark Rober, which is very exciting. But again, it's building. We're with the creator, with authentic and engaging, and bringing the kid along on the ride. I think that's the other piece.
And so one of the things we talked about up on the panel was, in the presentation, was around trust. Right? There's how important trust is, and trust is at a premium. Is that, I guess, first of all, is that right? And then when you think about those partnerships, like a Beast partnership, for example, is that kind of a response to that need for trust, or is it really just, hey, these guys have got a huge audience, let's figure out a way to partner up?
Yeah, and I would say it is about that trust, right? And being able to understand, like, where the audiences are and what they're looking for, and then being able to partner and create more of that storytelling content together.
Yeah.
I love that, and if I could build on it, I think from a discovery standpoint, it's easy-ish, and devotion is much harder, and trust is really that bridge between the two. And kids nowadays, they don't build trust in brands the way we used to. They trust creators, they trust people like them, and a big difference is having to show up in spaces that they already are. We had a conversation before we got on stage where we talked about the role of owned spaces. And I think my provocative POV on building trust is that owned spaces don't carry the same weight that they used to, or that we want them to. And just because we build it doesn't mean they'll come. It's about those shared spaces, the YouTubes, the virtual worlds that kids are going to see you and trust you within that. And it takes those deeper conversations.
Does that mean, so should people give up on trying to, for example, have their own apps? Because I definitely remember there was a point where everyone had their own app.
Microsites, like those were all the hot things.
Everyone's mom had their own app. Everyone had an app for their dog. Like, is that dead now?
I don't think it's dead, but I think it's changing its role within the brand's ecosystem, right? It's likely not going to be the trust or cool builder, because kids want to stay where they are, where they can have those conversations with friends. It can perhaps play a different role based on your brand's life cycle and where they are long term. But I would put more emphasis on showing up where kids are instead of trying to get them to go someplace they might not want to go.
Right. And I think that this maybe ties actually back nicely to that idea of co-creation, because a lot of the places kids are creation spaces. Roblox is the most obvious, probably, but even Fortnite has that to the ecosystem. Minecraft has that to the ecosystem. I think you see kids over on a lot of the art platforms doing interesting things as well. So is that? Let me maybe start out with you, Rachael. How important is that to how you think about authentic engagement with fans?
Yeah, so we've done a few integrations with other licenses on Roblox, and I think that's a big part of it. We want to make sure we're creating a space that's safe for kids. We want to be testing out learning, and gaming is a place such as Roblox, where we've leaned into what is a fandom, what's working, and using other partners, such as we use Monster Jam and other creators out there to create a shared space where kids could come, they could talk to each other, they can engage with our products and the game itself, but it's in a safe environment, which takes away any of that a lot of the nuance with parents that are afraid of some of these things and how kids are interacting online. So we want to lean into those spaces that are safe for children.
How much of a change has it been for you guys to move to a place where you you have that sort of interaction, you have that kind of co-creation. Because I think my perception is even 10 years ago, it would have been, there weren't really the places for kids and young people to do that. And now they have the opportunity, it's important to do it, but it feels like culturally that's maybe a change.
Definitely a cultural change, and I think it's all these amazing people that are out here that are developing these games, amazing media partners we work with that bring us these experiences that we can tap into, and they too are shaping what is going on in the media landscape along with kids. Again, to repeat, they're the ones telling us what they want, where they want to be, and we need to lean into that. We need to listen, and I think that is truly what's shaping. It's the Gen Alphas that are shaping media landscape today.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Katherine.
No, I was going to say, I'm leaning a little bit also to what Jess said earlier. It's going into those spaces, and Roblox is one probably that we work with the most, but it's really about finding the right games, the right environments. So it's not building your own and not creating your own world. It's looking for what connects that, again, that emotional relevancy, that emotional connection with your brand, and then building the experiences there.
Right.
Because the audiences are there. They're coming there already.
Jess, I mean, does this sound right? Does this scan for what you're seeing across your client base?
I'm going to say the most agency thing ever, which is it's about the brief. So if you're telling me to build a fandom, then absolutely it resonates. I'm going to use different tactics. I'm not just going to put a random ad in Roblox because that means I misunderstood the assignment. But when you tell me it's about building a fandom, right, it's no longer about a big splashy moment, but how do I stay in the game for longer, and how do I shift from retention to relevancy? And those are the more fun briefs, right? And that's what's going to sustain a brand long term. So sorry for that agency question. Like, what's your brief?
All right, so I'm gonna indulge with, I don't know if this is the best or the worst question to get as an agency person. What makes for a great brief in this space? Someone comes to you and says, hey, I want to go build a fandom. What do you want to know? For anyone out here who's thinking of coming to you guys and being like, hey, help me, what do you need to know from them to be really effective with that?
A good brief has clarity, it has singular objectives. It thinks across what are the ultimate business outcomes and goals. And I would say a good brief actually starts at the end of where do we want to go by the end of this. I think of a good brief the same way I think of a good review. It's smart, it's specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, and it's, I forget the R, and time bound. So I would say a good brief has focus, but it also allows us some creativity in how to respond to it and has some opportunity for back and forth.
I would certainly say from the SuperAwesome side, +1 on clarity of objectives. We do sometimes get briefs through, which like, I'd like to drive talkability, but I'd also like awareness. I'd also like foot traffic, and I'd also like to be authentic, but it would also be really good if you can mention my product unique selling points 5 to 7 times in the first 60 seconds. It's like, these are not the same thing. And we can do any one of them, but it is quite challenging to do all of them.
And I think you'd also want to add the why. Like, why am I doing this? What am I really looking to do? Why? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, start with that. Rachael, any thoughts on that?
I think the ladies touched upon a lot of it. It can get difficult, but I think providing in a good brief is insights, data, being data-led and what you're trying to achieve, and exactly as Jessica said, having an end goal in mind. So you can truly measure where you started and where you finished and really enjoy that journey that you go on.
So that gets us into a really interesting point, I think, which is that point around measurement. It strikes me that when we talk about some of this stuff around fandom, we're asking people to venture into a pretty different world of data. Like, I've kind of moved from impressions and retail sales, and sure, we still want retail sales at the end, but we're like, hey, measure talkability. Hey, what really counts as community. Again, that sounds hard.
It can be hard, but I think like having those points are what makes all the difference. Having a passive impression, yes, 10 million impressions is great, but having someone actually engage, click, spend time with your ads, spend time with your games is a true testament to like, this person cares. They're willing to hang around for 5 minutes or 2 hours versus a passive impression on a TV screen. So while it can be hard and it's ever evolving, and we work with great partners that further expand our measurement capabilities, I would say it's very critical, but it's what we lean into and helps our future development of products and gameplay.
Go.
And I was just going to say, a lot of what we're moving into in the space is more engagement metrics, right? And so it's important to understand what is happening on that scale, but internally, and we start looking at the bottom line. So we still want to understand that sales are coming in. However, it doesn't have to be a linear progression. So I was on a Roblox game, and then from there, I created a sale. It doesn't have to be linear like that anymore. We're looking at it in a very different way, where it's now that we've taken all the marketing levers together, whether it's you're in Roblox, you're on YouTube, you're on the social space, talking to the caregiver on Instagram or TikTok, rounding that out to then bring in attribution modeling, which is something we do internally to kind of look to say, hey, we know it wasn't a direct path, but because of all these levers, we did get to that sale point.
And you feel like you're getting to a point now where you actually have those kind of optics. You can bring together enough pieces. You can.
Yes.
Fascinating. Jess, what does Publicis apparently do? Or so Starcom apparently does some measurement. I've heard.
Yeah.
How do you guys think about where this is going?
I love hearing the perspective from my colleagues up here from the brand side, because what we're advising and what I'm advising from an agency perspective is to think of measurement like a three-legged stool. So we have the media metrics that we know are going to drive business outcomes and brand outcomes that are typically focused on effectiveness and efficiency. Then you have those brand metrics, right, that are the awareness and how you're bringing people through the funnel. And the third leg, which is the new leg of the stool, we're calling the emotion index. And you actually said it in your very first comment about the importance of driving emotion. And this is what we're creating with our clients now. We've typically focused on the first two legs of that stool. And this third one, the emotion index, is where we're seeing big brands start to lean into, because we need people to feel something and not just see our ads anymore. It's in the process of being created, and I don't have all of those answers yet, but it's incredibly exciting if my brand partners know what emotions they want kids to feel at the end of the day. How can we build that together with them?
Because that feels sort of talkability adjacent, right? That feels like you're sort of...
Trust is in there. I would say all of those things fit within that sphere.
Got it. And so when you think about that feels, I mean, don't want to put words in your mouth, some combination of social listening, some combination of whether you're creating with the brand as well, that's the sort of thing that would give you...
Absolutely. Leveraging partners that do first-party surveys where you can actually talk through parents with kids, definitely the social listening piece. We know whether they're supposed to be there or not. Kids are within that social space, much to sometimes, I think, our dismay. But there's a lot of those elements that we as an agency have access to try and proxy out some of these pieces.
Got it. Well, I mean, I feel like this is interesting. We've kind of covered the idea of like using creators to drive these fandoms, measure the fandom. I guess the question I'd have for both Spin and Moose is, you guys have got a lot of brands. Some of them are your own, some are licensed. Can you do this for every brand? Do you find you have to kind of pick which, this is a product and this is a fandom? Or do you want to do some version of this for everything? Yeah,
and we were talking about it earlier too. So it really comes down to prioritization. I like that word and don't like that word at the same time, but because it means you have to choose, but carefully, right? What is it that we're going to ensure that we're running, again, a 360 program, different levers? But there are going to be some brands where it's a little bit more product focused, and maybe it's just focusing in on one ecosystem, maybe just the YouTube ecosystem, but ensuring we're driving strategy there as well, because maybe we're limited in budgets and we just have to stay focused. Yeah.
Yeah, no one brand is the same. They're all at different stages of their life cycle. So it very much depends on the brief also. Who is our target audience? Where is that audience spending their time? So when we think about a preschool fandom, it is they're still watching TV, still out there. They're on streaming, they're watching YouTube on iPads, they're co-viewing in the household. However, when we think of another IP such as like Monster Jam, that is slightly different. We're trying to reach a boy demographic. So we're thinking gaming, we're thinking streaming, we're leaning into influencers. So that's how we then decide where is the right tactics to lean into. And it's very much about the audience. Where is it trend-based? Where is this trend resonated from? But as I said, no one's the same. And we just have to kind of pick and choose based on the insights that we get from our amazing agencies and our amazing media partners.
And how much of that do you think is really data driven, and how much of that is fundamentally this is the scale of the brand manager and the organization?
All of our products are built in Insight. So we have inventors, we have like panels that happen. So all of our products are either based on an insight or a trend. So we're listening from the outside, even from the initial briefing. And then when it comes to fruition, it's out on shelf. We want to be showing up where that initial insight came from.
Got it. So humans crunching insights is
exactly, that's it.
I mean, Jess, how would you? Is this an area you're being asked for help from your clients as well? Like, help us think about not just how to move forward this brand, but which brand we should even be taking forward in which way?
Absolutely. And I think the most important thing, you said it as well, Katherine, strategy is the essence of choice. And not every brand can do everything. It's about taking those nuggets of growth and stoking specific flames, and recognizing, like, with a portfolio of brands, different brands can do different things, and we can have different focus points and focal points on certain ones as well.
Yeah, you need. I love that point about making choices. I feel like that's an area where people often don't like to talk about. Almost the idea that there's sort of an assumption that you can do everything for every brand, and actually being quite ruthless about what you can achieve and where you want to place your chips feels important. Okay. I want to touch really quickly just on exit, on that idea that audiences can age out, things can stop being cool, it's hard to keep things growing. I guess there's probably one for both Moose and Spin. Anything that you got? I guess you both maybe seen success with kidults in different ways, but how are you thinking about managing that life cycle?
I think when it comes to like IPs and, like I said, nostalgia, like people do age out, but they can come back when you do amazing partnerships or licenses. That can pull someone back into the brand that might have been out of it for maybe 5-10 years, but it resonates with them. They're like, oh, I love Hello Kitty, but I also love Hatchimals, and the two come back and collide, and that can bring people back to the fandom through collaborations and partnerships.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. Nostalgia plays a piece to it, but it's making sure not to lean in completely into the nostalgia factor. You bring them in, but again, when we're talking about the younger audiences, it's then they may know about it, someone may talk about it, it may be brought in, but then how do we keep them there? How do we keep them engaged? How do we keep them interacting so that it's kind of building a new fandom?
Right, kind of reinventing the fandom as you go.
Correct.
Interesting.
Right, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, we are running tight on time here, so I'm going to quick closer question. Hopefully, we've got a pretty diverse audience. If you're in the audience right now, and imagine there's someone there, they've got a great product, they're thinking about how they can make that transition to building a fandom. What would one piece of advice you'd have for them? And I'll just go down the line.
Yeah, I would say we didn't talk about this a little bit, but play with the algorithm, and that is across anything. So whether you're tackling the YouTube space, whether you're trying to get TikTok, Instagram, play with the algorithm, keep playing with it, keep trying things, keep testing things, grab your learnings, go again.
Jess?
I would say shift your thinking from how do I show up as a brand to how can kids participate and build with me, and that's going to help long term.
All great answers. How do I top that? I think from our perspective, it's the consumer should always be at the center of your product. So lean into them. What are they talking about? And very consumer first approach.
Measure, co-create, send to the consumer. Yes. Great advice to start with. Guys, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful
Thank you so much.
panel.